Gotta love the latte. And people are keeping me in the good coffee graces by buying me coffee. So I appreciate that. And we're going to talk about those people at the end. Right now, we're going to talk about retiring in Korea. We're going to kind of do a Q&A and to get all the answers that you need. There's a lot of questions that can be asked about retiring and coming to Korea. And the context of this are those people that are married to somebody who has Korean ancestry. So for a lot of us, I think the majority of the people that I deal with are military service members that met their significant and better half here in Korea. Love at first sight. They get married, they walk down the aisle, and then they, do their military careers. They go to the United States or other countries, and eventually it gets to the point of where they're like, "Hey, they just have this urge to come back to Korea and retire," and we had that urge. And for the longest time, we wanted to retire overseas because we didn't see ourselves retiring in the United States until we were like 70. And the visa system in Korea isn't as expat or retiree friendly like the Philippines or Thailand or Laos or Vietnam or some of those other places, to where there's an income requirement that's really low and you can get long-term visas. And it's generally an easier way to retire overseas. There's also countries in Europe as well. But with that being said, Korea is not known for having a friendly retirement visa option or pensionado, if you're looking at Costa Rica or things like that. But when we found out that my wife could get an F4 visa, an F4 visa because of her Korean ancestry, even though she later became a U.S. citizen, we saw that as a way and an answer to prayers, I guess you could say, that we could come back to Korea, and then I would have an F1-9 visa, which is the spouse of an F4 visa holder, which is what my wife would have, an F4 visa, and we could stay in Korea. We did our due diligence. We looked, we had been to Korea many times, and so we already knew the area. We had narrowed down the apartments that we wanted to look at, because we wanted to buy an apartment, which is very different than a lot of other people. But we spent a lot of time in Korea, so we already had our boots in the ground in that aspect. For most people, I would recommend, if you haven't been to Korea in decades and you're thinking about retiring in Korea, don't worry about buying a property. What I would worry about is renting a property, finding a place that is good for you. Now, most people within the context of, military service member or veteran and, Korean ancestry, wife with Korean ancestry, usually they want to be around the wife's family or they want to be around a military base. So with that, that kind of narrows down your choices in where you're going to live. But then there's a number of other people that have contacted me that are like, "Hey, I'm going to this place and we're going to retire there," and it's like, it's out in Podunk, Korea. It's like, really? Wow, okay. That's different. They want to go out into the country. They buy an old farmhouse type thing, and they're going to live their lives out in the country, and that's absolutely cool. So, but with that, there are some questions that we're going to be answering, and this goes to Mike, who sent emails and stuff like that, and I try to do personal replies to all the emails that I get, and probably 9 times out of 10 I do. But I want to do this video and thank Mike for him buying me coffee, which is awesome. Appreciate that. We'll talk about that at the end. But go over some of his questions, because I've gotten some more messages of people who have similar questions, so I kind of want to do this Q&A. People are asking, it says, income requirements for the visas. And it's interesting because under my wife's F4 visa, she still has the ability to work for a Korean employer here in Korea. We're both retired. We're not working, but she could work. With me in my F1, F-1-9 visa, which is a spouse of an F4 visa holder, I am not allowed to work in Korea for a Korean employer. Okay, so like for example, I had another person contact me recently who's saying, "Hey, I do computer work, kind of IT stuff." They're able to have a remote job from the United States and work and live in Korea, but just not work for a Korean company. And so he was wondering, can I do that? And absolutely, you can. You could run your Amazon store, you could do your IT, your you know, web browser building page stuff, whatever it is that you do online and do remote work for maybe an American company or some other company, just not a Korean company, you can do that, which is really kind of a cool thing because you can get the best of both worlds. You can still make money from the United States and you're still going to get taxed, but you're not going to get doubly taxed because there is a double taxation agreement between Korea and the United States. But just know that if you are the spouse of somebody who has Korean ancestry, you're not going to work under that F1-9 visa for a Korean employer. So, if you make YouTube videos and you make a ton of money doing that, or you sell stuff in TikTok, whatever, I guess that's a thing these days too, that doesn't count against you. You would still be able to do that. So anyway, people were wondering, it says, like this gentleman here says, they should have about $60,000 with their pension and some other sources of income. Would that be enough? That's a little bit more than what I'm making. Now, that might not sound like a lot, but when you look at the situation of the people that contact me, the majority of people have paid off their houses in the United States. They have a pension, maybe a military pension, maybe also some Social Security, maybe some dividend funds that they were able to procure over their lives. And they're around the 50 to 70,000 mark as far as income. And with selling their primary home, which is paid off in the United States, they have a big chunk of money to where they would be able to buy probably a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, or maybe even a two-bedroom apartment for not a lot of money. And so they would still have money in reserve, and it's a great way to do that. But with that being said, we make less than 60 grand a year, and that might not seem like much, but when you consider that we purchased our apartment and we don't have that income going out every single month, we just pay for an apartment fee. That's the biggest expense that you're going to have, and if you don't have that, you're going to find that amount of money of your pension and so on and so forth is going to go a long way. Some people asked me and said, okay, well, did you have retirement accounts or 401ks or IRAs? Did you cash those out? No. No, we don't. I'm leaving those, not touching them, just going to let those continue to grow. So I'm just looking at my military pension, some other monies, and so on and so forth. I wouldn't recommend touching your 401k or cashing that in, or because there's the early, penalties for that. Same with the IRAs and other retirement vehicles. There's no sense in just pulling that out and taking that penalty if you don't have to. Just let that stuff grow and you can use it later on in life, or you can leave it as an inheritance for your kids. The other thing comes up is, as people are asking, like this person here, is there any criteria that we don't meet that would keep us from qualifying for an F4, F1 visas? And really, there's not much. You have to get an FBI background check. My wife had to get the FBI background check. I didn't have to get an FBI background check, which is strange. Usually it's the other way around, But as long as your background checks come out fine, you're not a drug dealer, you're not a gangbanger or anything like that. There's not, big convictions for money laundering or, serious crimes or felonies. For most people like us, we're boring. Okay, we're law-abiding citizens, and so really, as long as you kept your nose clean, you should be good to go. The other thing is you have to have another question that this person and other people have asked. Well, what information do you need as proof showing that my spouse was a Korean citizen or has Korean ancestry? you can find that out at Korean consulates in the United States or other, wherever there's a Korean consulate, and they will give you the information where you can get that information. What we ended up doing is when we got to Korea on a tourist visa, because we were about 99% sure we were going to retire in Korea, but it was that 1% let's just do it on a tourist visa, and then we'll submit our F1, F4 and see what happens. As soon as we got here, it was like, yeah, we're going to put in our paperwork. So the wife got the FBI background check. We were able, and of course we had copies of our marriage certificate. I had the certificate and paperwork of our marriage that was approved by Uncle Sam because I was a U.S. service member who married a foreign national. We had the Korean documents showing that we had gotten married the same as, some people said, well, we got married in Seoul, or we got married in Pyeongtaek or Cheonan or Busan or whatever. Usually that local city office, if you did that, will have a copy, and that will be proof of your Korean ancestry. Other things that you can end up having is basically your birth certificate, showing that your parents were Korean nationals and or you were at one time a Korean national at one time of your life. So those are the things that you'll need, but the embassies and or if you're here in Korea, the immigration lawyers will be able to help you out with that. The other question I ended up getting from a guy over here was saying, well, what is the benefit of using an immigration lawyer? I can save money by doing it on my own. You know what? You could probably do it on your own, but you might have to make a few extra trips. And with an immigration lawyer, they usually have all the steps and all the paperwork, and it makes putting in the applications for the visas just so much easier. It's always nice to have an immigration lawyer who is really good at what they do, and they can tell you this is the paperwork, these are all the documents, blah, blah, blah. You need to go get your fingerprints, at a Korean police station and then come back and da-da-da. It's just lockstep, do it by the numbers and you're good to go. There are some people who do the DIY, I'm going to save money by doing it myself. In reality, are you really going to save money? For me and my wife's F4 and F1 paperwork, for our visa paperwork, I think back at the time, about 2 years ago now, was around $550-ish for both of ours. That's not a lot of money. And considering that if we did it on our own, you're looking at, going to a couple of offices, traveling, things that the immigration lawyer does and you pay them to do. But I don't have to take a day to go to Seoul. I don't have to take a day and go to this immigration office. I don't have to take another day and go back, and if the clerk that I'm talking to at the city office or the immigration office gave me the wrong information, which sometimes happens, you're talking about 2, 3, 4 days of trips. And in all honesty, I think I've got enough money that I don't care about it. I would rather have the convenience of paying somebody to do that for me and minimize me traveling and traipsing all over Korea and the frustrations of, oh, well, you don't have this form, or, this form isn't, your certification of entry and exit of Korea, which has to be within 90 days. If it's outside that 90-day window, you have to go back to the city office and get another copy of that. You usually won't find that out until after the fact, when you have all your paperwork and you're past that 90-day mark and you're finally submitting in your F1 and F4 visas, and then they say, yeah, we can't take this because this is outside the 90 days. And really nothing has changed, but it's just the rules that they have. So it's nice to have an immigration lawyer, at least in our experience, that can look at all this stuff and say, hey, well, you need to get an updated copy of this, or you need to have this, and copies of your passport and birth certificates, marriage certificates, so on and so forth, proof of income, how much money you have coming in every month, showing by bank statements, which, I would translate them into from English to Korean. So you have an English version, then you have a Korean translated version, which you can do online for free or in Microsoft Word. Same thing, kind of a recapitulation of funds that come in and what you make every year, just to kind of give little bullet statements of this is my bank, this is how much we make, this is how much we have in the accounts, this is how much we make per year, and have that all translated into Korean, and it will make things go a lot smoother. Our immigration lawyer thought that was awesome. And the same thing with the medical insurance, which doesn't happen with your F1 or F4 visa. That's after you get your Korean resident card. If you stay longer than 90 days in Korea, then you'll have to have some type of health insurance. But the letter or proof of your medical insurance, in our case, TRICARE Overseas Select, you can go to the TRICARE website and you could download that, and it's in English, but just get it translated into Korean and boom, free online translation services. Like I said, you can import that into Microsoft Word and it does auto translating, and boom. So I had the sheet in English and the sheet in Korean, and they loved it. They oh man, this is awesome. This will make everything so much easier, which is what you want to do. You don't want to make things hard. You don't have to pay for translation services. That's another thing that somebody contacted me. How much did you pay for translation services? Don't. I'll pay for an immigration lawyer, but I'm not going to pay for translation service that is not required by the immigration service. If the online free translation from English to Korean works, and there's no requirement to have an official translator translate these documents, then yeah, I'm not going to spend that money. I'll pay money where it's due, but I'm not going to spend money that I don't have to spend. With that being said, this person, Mike, asks, he goes, somebody mentioned something about having to renounce Korean citizenship before returning to Korea and applying for a long-term visa. Did your wife ever have to do that after becoming a U.S. citizen? When my wife became a U.S. citizen, of course, you have to renounce the citizenship of the country that you originally came from. So there is that. But returning to renounce Korean citizenship before returning to Korea and applying for a long-term visa. Yeah, I'm not sure that, I don't think she did that, because if she's an American citizen, she already renounced her Korean citizenship, and now she's coming back as a returning Korean, somebody of Korean ancestry, so there's no need to renounce that again. You've already done that when you became an American citizen. Here's an interesting question. I may have missed it, but I'm curious about your strategy for selling all your possessions. So it's kind of interesting because it's a way to do it. There's different ways to do it. And for those of you who don't know, the wife and I, what we ended up doing is when we found out that we could retire overseas in Korea and get our F4 and F1 visas, now we made the decision, are we going to sell everything, or are we going to ship some things to Korea, like furniture or keepsakes or whatever. We decided to just sell everything. So the house, the cars, the guns, the ammo, the preps, the pots and pans, everything in the kitchen junk drawer. How do you sell all that stuff? And what's interesting is the number of people who have followed us and followed our example and sold everything in the United States. They sold their possessions kind of the same way we did. A lot of people will sell stuff at garage sales. They'll have big sales. Some people will go to thrift stores. They'll donate a bunch of items that, obviously you're not going to be able to sell. It's kind of left over, so we did that as well. And the thrift store that we donated a lot of items to, which was also tax deductible, but we didn't have enough, items on that to make it deductible. But it went to an organization that provided care for infants of women who were in prison. And I forget the name of the place, but it was in southern Colorado. It was something thrift store, New Horizons thrift store. And so they provide for babies, and they look after the children of women who are incarcerated, which is a really good cause. So I didn't mind giving away a bunch of stuff. Other people, and ourselves included, found individuals that would buy the majority of our stuff all at once. And so, in other words, these people could be investors and saying, hey, I see you're selling a bunch of stuff. Can I take a look and stop by and see what you have? Because I might be interested in buying a huge lot of it. And of course, they're going to want a discounted price, which is good because, you could stick to your guns. But on the other side of the coin, they might say, well, I'm not going to pay that. And then now you have to sell everything piecemeal. So it comes to that. There's a trade-off there. But between the garage sales and selling furniture, Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, all of those things, even getting the word out in local congregations or the churches or organizations that you belong to, people want a good deal. And if you've got decent stuff, they will take it off your hands. And then even if you have stuff that's not good, we left a bunch of stuff on the curb of stuff that we couldn't sell and, just put a sign said free stuff and that stuff disappeared overnight. So, there's that as well. But thrift stores, if you can find individuals that will buy in bulk of the items that you're selling, cars, we ended up selling the wife's car. My truck, I ended up selling that to a guy that I knew, and he actually, of course, I gave him a real good deal on it, and then he drove us to the hotel, and then we were able to fly out the next day. All of that stuff went fairly quick, and it was amazingly quick on how fast. And you're going to price these items where it's at a discount, and they're going to recognize that, and so those items are going to go quickly. But if you're stingy and you want top dollar for used stuff that you have an emotional attachment to, you won't sell it as fast as people who just say, hey, we used it for 20, 30 years. It's good. I'll take a discount. Like we had some Korean furniture that we had since we got married, which was like 30 some odd years ago. And, we got 30 some odd years of use of that Korean furniture, and it was still really nice. But, after 20, 30 years, we can sell it at a discount. We got our money's worth and way much more. But because there's that emotional attachment to those items, we often overprice and think that justifies a higher price when in actuality it doesn't. So there's going to be some stress and struggles of saying, oh, but this is this and this is this, and it brings back so many memories. The people that are buying your stuff don't care about your memories. Okay, they're looking at the stuff, and they want the stuff so they can create their own memories, and memories that doesn't translate to value. Okay, so there's that. As far as selling the house, there's people that were like, well, how did you end up selling everything? Well, I just told you how we did that, and we kind of coordinated it into selling our house at the same time. Now, for us and a couple other people that I've talked to, it was at the height of the real estate market, and their properties were paid off, and so they sold put their house up for sale, their property. And there was people that told me, like, we got ours on the market within 24 hours, we had a contract. Other people have told me that it was like a week, 5 days or something like that, just less than a week, and their properties were under contract. So with that kind of put some stress into now we really need to make a concentrated effort in selling the rest of our stuff, because when we get to closing, we don't want to have any stuff left, if that's the route that you're going to go. So it was just kind of amazing. It's a wild, stressful, frustrating time, but it's also exciting because that you're leaving the United States and you're going to Korea. So there'll be the emotional ups and downs and so on and so forth. And luckily, we were able to sell everything, and that was our main job, was selling our stuff. And so it was like people calling up, hey, are you going to be? Yes, we will be here. Hey, I was wondering if I could stop. Yes, absolutely. And the people that would show up for like Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace or things like that, people that were coming to buy stuff, show them all of your stuff. Okay, just don't show them the stuff that they want to buy. Show them all of your stuff, and you will find out that most likely people will buy more stuff if you show it to them. If you just say, hey, I've got a dining room table and chairs for sale, and then they come and they look at it and they're saying, oh, okay, well, that's great, and they buy the table and chairs and they leave, that's it. But offer them the chance to look at everything else that you have, and you'll be surprised, because we had a number of people that only wanted to buy one thing that ended up buying multiple items. So don't sell yourself short. Be a salesperson. Say, hey, this is this, and what are you, if you got a few minutes, take a look at all this other stuff that we have, and it will go well. We ended up to where it was kind of this ultimate timing, where we had everything sold. I think we just had one mattress. We had gotten rid of the box springs, the bed and the frame and everything. So we had like our 2 suitcases and a mattress and like a whoopee and whatever, and stuff, to where it's like, okay, well, when we leave, we're just going to put this in the trash and we're going to go. Somebody's going to pick up the mattress or whatever. I mean, it was really, we lived in an empty house besides our suitcase and stuff. And then it got down to the point of where it's getting down to the wire. Of course, you're trying to clean up the property, clean up the house. Then you go to closing, and then we closed that day. And then the timing just worked out perfect, to where we met with my buddy who I sold my truck to, and he was able to pick us up and drive us to a hotel. And then the next day we were able to get a taxi. And well, we tried to get a taxi, but we couldn't because it was COVID was going around, and we ended up getting a ride with some people that were going to the airport, and they gave us a ride, which was awesome. So it worked out well anyway. But then we missed our flight, but then because we got there late, but then we had to get another flight. And so, yeah, that timing didn't work out so well. But as far as selling all of our stuff, going to closing, and then we were able to leave with our truck and our suitcases, and the house was immaculate and clean. It's all just kind of putting everything into a timeline and doing some backward planning. So it's like, on this day, we want to have everything out of the house because we're going to close. And then you have these milestones or time markers of where we want to have X amount of stuff sold. And you will quickly realize that it's like, yeah, we want to sell this, but then you start getting used to it, and you're like, yeah, why do I need the end tables and the bed frame? Do we really need those? Do we really need to hang on to those, or can we sell those early? Yeah, we can sell those early. What about the plates and dishes? The silverware, the utensils, the pots and pans, all that stuff. Do we really need all of that stuff, or can we sell it? Yeah, so we ended up with like a bowl, a fork, a spoon, a cup, for each of us, and then we just got rid of everything else. We had the microwave that stayed, and that stayed with the house. And of course, we still had the stove and the refrigerator, but we minimized pretty much everything, and it became quickly apparent to us that, you can sell a lot of stuff in a short amount of time, and it's amazing. But if you're stingy on the price, you will find some resistance, and then that comes into play. Other people that I've seen who retired overseas, not coming to Korea specifically, but retired overseas, did like an auctioneer type of thing, to where they got with an auction company, and the auction company comes in, of course, for a percentage of the profits. They will auction off everything in your home, and some people that I have chatted with online did that, and they had some real good results. For me, where I was at, just didn't work out that way, but we did it with, the ways that we talked about. So yeah, the best way to sell your personal possessions, people aren't going to buy your underwear, people aren't going to buy certain things, and so a lot of things are going to get donated. The old shoes and things like that, but you can give those away to thrift stores, you can get tax deductions for those if you qualify for those, battered women's shelters, or, things like that. Take those items that you had and give them to charities, maybe churches, winter coats, to homeless shelters and things like that. There's a lot of great ways that you can get rid of personal possessions and kind of be helping out with charity. So keep that in mind as well. And especially if you're at the point where you can qualify for the deductions on your taxes, boom. I mean, that's a great way to do it as well. So, with that being said, yeah, that was kind of hard. That was probably the most stressful thing, was selling everything because of two components. One, we were under a time constraint. Two, we had emotional attachment to a lot of items, and I was just amazed at how much crap we had. We over the years, 30 some odd years, you come up with a lot of crap. Hand tools, this, that, paints, and I mean, just boxes of stuff. We still had boxes of stuff that we hadn't unpacked when I was in the military. Still had military uniforms that were, I don't know why I kept them. It's just, I guess it's just what you do, and it's just amazing on how much stuff you have. And what I found for me is that with that amount of stuff, I felt like I was losing part of my identity. But after I got into the role of selling all of these things, I found out that it's just stuff. It's not me. And so if you have, I think everybody has that to some degree, but if you're more solid in your identity and it doesn't revolve around your stuff, it'll be a lot easier for you to sell your stuff however you end up doing it. So anyway, it ends up, what other stuff do we have? Here's another one. People asking about the F1 visa and that it's only good for 90 days. And how were we able to get a 2-year visa on the F1 visa when you go online and the Korean immigration says it's only good for 90 days for visiting family? There are subcategories of the Korean visa system. So in other words, you have an F1 visa, but then you have the F1-1, F1-2, F1-3, so on and so forth. And the F-1-9 is the visa for somebody who is a spouse or a child of a person who has an F4 visa. Now, the strangest thing is that the Korean government websites don't have these things listed, which boggles my mind. We're in 2024, folks, and you don't have a complete list of all of these subcategories? That just doesn't make sense to me. But they're out there, and I'm trying to piece together a list of these things. Matter of fact, let me see if I can find the listing, because I'm making a, come on now. Here it is. I might as well just go over this a little bit, see if we can come up on this. So, for example, and there I am, I'm gone, I disappeared. Oh no. Overlays. I want to put in a camera overlay so you can see my pretty face. We're going to close that out, kind of make it like that. Okay, so I'm putting together a list of the F1 visas. So we have an F1 visa over here, and the F1-9 is the visiting or joining family as a Korean spouse, and that pertains to, in this instance, people who, their spouse of somebody who has Korean ancestry, which is an F4 visa. So you have like the F1D, which is a workstation or the digital nomad, the F2-1, spouse of a Korean. You've got all of these subcategories, and I'm trying to make this list, and this isn't 100% guaranteed, but like the F4, you have the F411 for an overseas Korean, descendant of an overseas Korean, university graduate, corporate executive, multinational company, teacher, government employee, spouse or minor child of permanent resident, investors, overseas Koreans who stayed more than 2 years. So we have all these subcategories of all of the Korean visas and these F4 visas, and it's like, or F5 visas here, and it's hard to find this information. And I haven't found any of this on Korean government websites, which is the startling thing. I don't understand why that is not a thing. Let me see if we can make this a little bit bigger. G visas, H visas, working holiday visas, military visas, tourist visas, which is a T1, and that's what we originally came to Korea on, was a tourist visa for 90 days from the United States. And then once we got here, we applied for F1 or F9 visa. But you don't have to do that in Korea, but you can do that in the United States. So, we have these F4 visas here. And again, there's a lot of different subcategories of all this stuff. And so, yeah, it's just really, really interesting on why this stuff is not listed on any Korean government website. Like it's a highly secret thing and we need to hide it from everybody. But I don't understand, because I don't know, maybe that's why they have immigration lawyers, and that's kind of a way of giving people jobs. I don't know, maybe it is. Educational visas, work visas, trainee visas, artist, news coverage, short-term, visa exemptions, tourist transit, diplomat, government officials. So we have a number of different visas there. So yeah, it's just kind of frustrating when we look at some of the problems that you're going to run into and things that you think would say, well, surely the Korean immigration website, the consulate website would have a listing of all the visas and all the subcategories, but they don't. Okay, so hence is some of the problems going back to, well, can't I do this on my own? Like I had some people contact me and say, well, when we get to Korea on a tourist visa, I'm just going to do it on my own. You can go to the immigration office here in Korea and say, hey, I want to apply for an F1 visa. Which F1 visa are you talking about? Which F4 visa are you talking about? And if you're not clear on which one that you were applying for in the subcategories, that clerk might assume that you're applying for this, but you're really applying for that, and they will give you differing information, which could cause problems and delay in the submission of your paperwork and so on and so forth. So yeah, I don't know why it is, and that's why I said, let's just do the immigration lawyer thing. My wife found a good one, and she's been awesome. And matter of fact, they're in the same building as the Korean immigration in Songtan, which is close to Osan Air Base. But it also depends on where you're going to live. If you're not going to live in that area where that immigration area office covers that region, you're going to have to go to a different immigration office. So maybe look at an immigration lawyer that works in that region, and that would better serve you in that aspect. But for us, because we're in the Osan, Pyeontaek, Camp Humphreys, Osan Air Base area, it just worked out really well. So yeah, that's what we end up having. Let me close this out. And any other questions? Oh, how did you get an increase in the term of your visa? So this is a good question. When I got my wife got her F4 visa, I got the F1, and for my wife, it was good for 2 years. For me, as her spouse, as the F1-9 of the F4 visa holder, mine was only good for a year. And it's like, we've been married 34 years. We're coming up on 35 years. I don't understand. Why isn't the term the same? Why is mine a year and then hers is 2 years? I have no idea. But as we got with our immigration lawyer, and when it was time to renew, we asked about that. Is there a way to extend it so we can have the same amount of terms on our visas instead of having to renew it every single year? And the immigration lawyer was, oh, yeah, if you submit this, which was our marriage certificate again, we submitted the birth certificate of our daughter. And again, it's just a checklist of things that you have to do. And we did it. And next thing you know, I think it was like a week or 10 days later, maybe 2 weeks, we got the word back that, yeah, your visa is now good for 2 years. So now we just have to renew it every 2 years, which is awesome. I mean, instead of doing it every year, now it's every 2 years. So that's the other interesting thing that I've noticed about Korea is that in the United States, when you ask about something, will tend to say, well, if you want to do this, you might consider doing this because here are some additional benefits. You can do it faster, cheaper, whatever. It would better suit you to do this or to help you out in the end. You know, if you do it this way and submit this paperwork, it would be better. Here in Korea, yeah, we had to ask for that. So it wasn't openly like, hey, did you ever think of wanting to put in this extra paperwork so that you can do renewal every 2 years instead of every 1 year? It's just the difference of living overseas. So if there are some questions, question everything. You know, say, hey, well, is there a way that we can get an exception? Can I get a longer term? Whatever it is. You know, ask those questions, and it'll be interesting because more often than not, there will be ways that you can do things, but it just doesn't come to mind. It's in Korea, it's kind of like Japan. It's like bump, 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 bump. Go by the numbers, and that's it. They don't look at individual circumstances and saying, well, I know this person wants to do this, but we have this other thing over here, and if they did that, it would benefit them and they wouldn't have to come renew every year. I don't know why. It's just a thing, and you'll get used to it. So there's that. But yeah, we ended up having to have a copy, of course, of our passport, all the renewal documents, and the form to renew my visa, and then the marriage certificate, and then the birth certificate of our daughter, she's in her 30s. It doesn't make sense, you know, even if we didn't have a kid, we've still been married for 30 some odd years. But with that, it just checked the box of the Korean immigration office. Yep. Boom, they blessed it, and we were good to go, and they extended the term of my visa. Eventually, there's also another thing that is coming up that people have asked. If your Korean spouse, the one who has the F4 visa, when they hit 65, they're eligible to get dual citizenship. So in other words, my wife would be able to have her Korean citizenship and U.S. citizenship, have the dual citizenship, which is kind of a thing, and boom, that's a done deal. And then there's another thing of visa that when you hit 50 something, let me see if I can find it. Here it is. There is a Korean visa at age 62. And you have to make twice the Korean gross national income, which is about $33,000 to $35,000 a year. So you have to have twice that amount in pensions or Social Security and things like that. And so you can get an F-5-13 visa, depending on how busy they are. It can take up to 9 months. So anywhere from like 4 months, 6, 9 months for it to get approved. And you don't have to leave Korea while it's being processed. And once it's approved, you're good for life. You just have to get fingerprinted every 10 years. So remember that, the F-5-13 visa. If you're 62 or older, and you have twice the gross national income of Korea, which is currently like 35,000. So you're looking at, what is that? Let's see if we can pull up. Let's say it's 35,000 times 2. So you're looking at about $70,000 a year currently as it is now. But if you have that, and it takes, anywhere from 4 to 9 months to get that approved, you're good. And then the only thing that you have to end up doing is going back every 10 years and updating your fingerprints, letting them know you're alive, and it's a done deal. So, yeah. And with that, it ends up the requirements is the application form, proof of income. In other words, you would have letters and bank statements and federal tax returns and a recapitulation of the funds that you get every month and every year. Apostilled criminal background check, of course, your passport and a copy of that, the photos, the 2-inch by 2-inch photos that you have for like passports, you gotta have a number of those. Proof of residence, which can be a rental agreement or the deed of the house that you're in that you purchased or property. And that whole process is about 300,000 won. So for those of you who are wondering, 300,000 won divided by, it's about 1325-ish. So you're looking at about $226. That's nothing. But the good thing is that you summarize all of your payments. You can put it in English and put it in Korean, make it easier for them. And yeah, there's people that have contacted me, like this gentleman here. He said it took them 6 months. Another guy contacted me and said it took him 5 months. Another guy was 8 months. Yeah, and once you get it, it's permanent. So remember that F513 visa if you're 62 or older and you make twice the GNI of Korea. So if you got some pretty good funds and you're making, about $70,000 or more off of your pension, Social Security, or whatever it is that you have, yeah, you could go for that F513 visa when you're age 62, I think it is what it is. Yeah, 62. But definitely check on that and ask about that. So, yeah, another good thing. If you're older and you meet the income requirements, and even then, I don't know, can you get an exception to some of the proof of income? I'm going to be 58 next month, so of course I can't apply for that. But when I get 62, I'm going to apply for my Social Security. And who's to say you can't say, hey, well, I've been in Korea for a while. We bought our apartment because, we sold our primary residence, so we own our apartment here in Korea. There might be some other considerations. There might be some exceptions that you can put in. I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. It's worth a try. At least contact a Korean immigration lawyer and ask about that to see if there are any exceptions that you can do. It's always good to ask for exceptions, and if you don't meet the qualifications. But don't come to Korea and thinking that they will give you those exemptions if you don't meet the requirements. You should at least meet the Barney basic requirements so that you're good to go and you can stay, and there's no fraud or lying or anything like that. So yeah, that's what we got going on. A lot of interesting questions. Let me see if there's anything. The F513 visa, I think you have to be 60 years old. It's either 60 or 62. So I've got a thing here that says that it's 62. And then I've got another one here that says that it's 60. So yeah, we'll have to take a look at that and dig into it. So somewhere around 60, 62. Again, you'll have to verify this information because things change over time. But yeah, there's just some other ways of doing that. And let's see if we get some other parts. Nope. Oh, buying property in Korea. Here's a thing that could be interesting. Some people are asking about marriage certificates and apostille services. And so I want to show you the service that we used. And this was it here. This is Monument Visa Service. They do apostille services for driver's license and things like that, FBI background checks. But if you have a good immigration lawyer, then you're not going to have a problem with that because they will help you with all of that stuff. Ah, man, I keep disappearing. I don't know why. But this is the Monument Visa service that we use to get our driver's license apostilled. And what we ended up, it's an online thing. I can't remember how much it was, but you can check that website out. It's monumentvisa.com. And yeah, there it is. This was recommended to me by a fellow veteran, and he said, yeah, they did everything and sent it in online. So let's see, driver's license apostille, diploma apostille, FBI, whatever. Step 1, needs a clear scan or picture of front and back of your driver's license and driving record to be uploaded to the order form. You do not have to mail your original license to us. And because that's what I was told. People told me that you had to mail in your driver's license, and that's not the case. It says once the order form is submitted, we print out your license and driving record and confirm that we have everything we need. The record is notarized by a local notary. We submit it to the state office to be apostilled. Turnaround time is about a business day, and then we're ready to move forward. And the interesting thing is that while, oh yeah, here it is, the fee chart, $55 per apostille. So yeah, it was a great deal. This is the cheapest one. And with our APOAP mailbox here in Korea, they were able to do it like FedEx or whatever it was. We got it quick. It wasn't overnight, but we got it here fairly quick, and we got our documents, and that was great. So I'm not associated with them at all. I don't get kickbacks or I'm not paid anything. It's just, it worked, and the person who recommended it to me says they don't get kickbacks. It just worked for them, and it saved them a lot of time. So yeah, FBI background check. Let's see what that is. We didn't have to do that. Expedited service, in-person application by mail, so that you can do that. And there is the background check thing there. But we didn't have to deal with that because the immigration lawyer was able to get all that for us. So yeah, if you're looking to get the driver's license, getting that apostilled or marriage certificates or any other documents for whatever reason, the Monument Visa service worked out well for us. And we used it for driver's licenses. As far as everything else, I don't know. But that worked well for us, and it was good to go. So I hope this retiring in Korea, the question and answers, that you can get all the answers that you need. And I've got a lot of other videos on my YouTube page, The Varied Life, which you can see right down there. Go on YouTube, type that in. And I've got other videos on retiring in Korea. I also do like miniatures and painting and hobby stuff. But if you like this information and got anything out of this, and I think this is some good information, because when we ended up making and starting our journey, I went online and I couldn't find anybody that had done what we had done. In other words, I couldn't find video. I found some stuff from like 10 years prior, but there was nobody recent who left the United States, sold everything, put stuff in a couple of suitcases, and showed up in Korea and said, hey, we're going to get our F1 and F4 visas, and shared their experiences. I couldn't find anybody. So when we did this, it was really, we're nervous, we're scared, we're excited, and, we didn't see any examples of this. And so since we documented our journey, there's a number of people who saw my videos and said, hey, he did it, and it's recent, and it's a thing. And yeah, there's a bunch of people who came over here to Korea and retired just like we did. And, they're like, oh, I've had people say, oh, I'll pay you money if you consult me. No. Just buy me a coffee. Go down to buymeacoffee.com, the Varied Life. Buy me a coffee or two or whatever, and you can be some of these awesome people here, like Fred, Mike, and Jim, who bought me coffees, and I really appreciate that. So if you do, that's awesome. Thumbs up. I would appreciate that. All funds will go back into the YouTube channel and providing information, and some of it will go towards the hobby part and the painting and all of that. I'm not going to get rich off of that. My channel isn't even monetized, but if you buy me a coffee, that would be awesome. But don't feel like you have to. At a minimum, please give me a thumbs up on this video. Go to YouTube, take some time to find my channel, subscribe, because that's the whole thing with YouTube and the YouTube gods and algorithms. And it's good to have likes and subscribers. So at least do that. I would appreciate that. And I thank you for that. But especially for the awesome people who bought me coffees. You all are awesome. And that comes from the bottom of my heart. And we all know how much I love my lattes. So anyway, that's what we got going on. I appreciate it. If you have any questions, you can send them to me through email, officialthevariedlife@gmail.com. And I'm really good with replying to people who ask questions and their situation. And even though I go through a lot of the stuff over and over, I still like having that personal connection with people. It's it's just better that way. You know, I can put everything on a website, a free website, and say this is what you need to do, blah 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 blah, A to Z. You know, 1 to 10 by the numbers. But you lose that personal connection, and I like having that personal connection. I like sharing, and you know, there's so much information that people will ask questions, and I give them the answers, and then later on they'll come back and they say, hey, I remember you said something about this or that or whatever. And it's not that they forgot, it's just that there's a lot of information. So it's okay to say, okay, well, I got this info, but I'm not grasping this 100%. Can you, you know, expand upon that, help, you know, explain it more or whatever. And I'm happy to do that. So yeah, I just like to help out and do that. It's something to help out other veterans and other people who are in similar situations as us, who, you know, they don't feel like they fit in the United States, them and their Korean spouse, but when they get to Korea, it's more of a fit for them here in Korea. And, you know, helping people to do that is awesome. And it's kind of good. You know, some people, when they get over here, they take us out for dinner or lunch, you know, go out for drinks or something like that, which is really cool, have some coffee here in Korea. But for the people that are just starting on this journey, or you're just thinking about it, saying, yeah, it is possible. Yeah, it's a thing, and it's kind of fun to be able to share our experiences, and hopefully some of those experiences can be your experiences, and you end up having a better life for it. So that's going to be it for today. I've got a number of things I need to do. My protein shake thing broke. So this is like the third one. I need to find a heavy duty one. So we're just going to take it easy. It's still hot here in Korea. They said the weather was going to get better, but it's not. It's like 11 to 15 degrees hotter than normal in the average years. It is miserable. The one time of year that I don't like is Korean hot and humid summers. Everything else, no problem. Hot and humid, just don't like it. So, yeah, it is what it is, but I still enjoy it, and I don't regret coming to Korea and retiring. So, with that being said, hope you all have a great day. Appreciate you watching. Be sure to like and subscribe, all that stuff, and we will see you on the next video. Peace. Good stuff.